It began with an escalator ride at Trump Tower in New York City. The date was June 15th, 2016, and the occasion was the announcement of a run for president by Donald J. Trump. To many, it seemed like just another over-the-top display of pomp and flash by the conspiracy theory-peddling host of the reality show Celebrity Apprentice. This guy for president? Give me a break. Well, it turns out we were naive. You see, there were three things we didn't understand on that day. First, how masterful he was at lying, cheating, bullying, and causing so much confusion that it all seemed to run together into a manic jumble of bizarre distractions. Second, we didn't realize how relentless and dangerous this man would turn out to be. And third, we had no idea of the amount of damage he would soon be doing to our country. What you're about to see and hear represents only a small portion of that damage. Shortly after his election, he tried to pressure James Comey, then director of the FBI, to drop an investigation of Michael Flynn, the man who had lied to the FBI and was secretly working with the Russians on Trump's behalf. And when Comey said no, when Trump didn't get his way, he fired Comey and immediately began to smear his reputation. Later, when asked about the possibility that Russians had interfered with the 2016 election, which, by the way, was the overwhelming assessment of all of our intelligence and security agencies, he said on TV seen around the world that he believed the word of Russian President Vladimir Putin, a former KGB agent, over the factual evidence produced by our own national security professionals. He immediately began insulting and threatening our long-standing allies, Germany, France, England, and others. These are the countries and leaders that had fought side by side with us and shed their blood for our country. His actions began to deteriorate our standing as a leader of all nations of the world, a process that has continued throughout his presidency. He quickly took us out of the Paris Accord, a coalition of virtually all nations dedicated to stopping environmental damage and protecting our world and future generations from the terrifying prospects of global warming. And by the way, these future generations are your children, grandchildren, and beyond. He removed us from the Iranian nuclear accord, an agreement between nations that had taken a decade to develop. A deal that, despite his negative comments, was working exactly as it was meant to, guaranteeing the world that Iran would not develop nuclear arms for a minimum of 15 years. In his typical belligerent manner, Trump called it a lousy deal, a total disaster that only he could make right. And now, nearly 4 years later, Iran is again working on nuclear fuel. Tensions are mounting, and we have nothing. No deal. Ditto for Kim Jong-un in North Korea. What he told us he could negotiate and fix became no deal. He launched a border-crossing travesty that ended up separating thousands of children and even babies from their families, placing them in cages for extended periods of time. In many cases, their parents were deported, and the children were left alone, feeling frightened and abandoned in the custody of Border Patrol agents who had no child care skills. For just a moment, imagine one of those was your child. He paid off at least 2 women, one a porn star and the other a Playboy model, to hide how he had cheated on his wife while she was pregnant with their child. Nearly 20 other women have come forward with claims of sexual misconduct. And by the way, this is in addition to telling a TV host that because he was a celebrity, he could do whatever he wanted with women, including, quote, grab them by the pussy, unquote. He placed tariffs on Chinese imports that he claims has made us billions of dollars. But the truth is, you and I are paying for yet another of his great deals. When tariffs are placed on imports, American companies have to pay more for those goods. The price increases are then passed on to you and me. He tried to extort Ukraine's new president into going on national TV and announcing that there was going to be an investigation into presidential candidate Joe Biden's son. His reason? To smear Biden, the person he would be running against in 2020, with yet another Trump conspiracy theory. His method? He withheld already promised and congressionally approved money and weapons from Ukraine until his president would agree to carry out his little favor. He was impeached for his Ukraine scheme, becoming only the third American president to receive this dishonor. But shortly after the impeachment, he was let off the hook by the Republican Senate. And speaking of Republican senators, these once reputable and distinguished politicians have become recognized as a cowardly group that ignores the oath they took to protect our country. How? By doing Trump's bidding and standing by silently as he attacks our democracy time and time again. He lies continually, keeping his base of far-right loyalists riled up and believing his debunked conspiracy theories. He has even gone so far as to suggest his critics are murderers, and he has made comments encouraging rebellion and the possibility of civil war, eliciting cheers from some of his loyalists who wear Nazi insignias and carry AR weapons into demonstrations. And then came the COVID-19 pandemic and the murder of a black man that thrust our country into upheaval. Instead of leading with an effective national unity plan, he has fumbled and failed in typical Trump fashion, whining about how he is mistreated by the press and blaming everyone else for his incompetence. Remember, Trump's campaign slogan was "Make America Great Again." There was no need for it back then. We were already a great nation. But today the slogan rings true. We do need to make America great again by voting out the man who is systematically destroying it. We need to elect a level-headed leader with knowledge, compassion, and integrity. We need Joe Biden.